Oh my God. She's so drunk.
Those who don't appreciate life do not deserve life.
Hello and welcome to Cheers to Fears, where we take horror films and turn them into drinking games. My name is Alex.
And I'm Tucker. And today we'll be closing in on the end of the Saw franchise, where we will be looking at Saw 6, directed by Kevin Greutert. Greutert was an editor for each Saw movie up to Saw 6, where he was promoted to director for this movie and Saw 3D, the final chapter. In Jigsaw, he was called back to be an editor, and now he's an executive producer for Spiral.
Back on track to Saw 6, where we pick up right where we left off, with Hoffman outsmarting Agent Strom and flaming him to be the Jigsaw killer. Hoffman is being given more information than ever before about the Jigsaw case, but the FBI is getting more suspicious of Hoffman as well.
Meanwhile, William Easton, a health insurance executive, has a very stable, high-paying job which he determines whether people live or die. Now the tables have turned, and William's life is no longer in his own hands.
As always for our movies, we will now be hitting spoiler territory, so this is your one and only warning to pause the video, watch the movie, and come back. If you are interested in playing with our rules for the movie, the rules will be posted on the screen now. Without any further delay, let's get right into the rules.
The first rule, as always, is death, which is just as simple as it sounds. If you see a death, you take a drink. We counted a total of 13 deaths seen on screen in Saw 6, and yes, we are counting some flashbacks in there as well.
Next up, we have our second common horror movie rule, with drinking every time you hear a scream, cry, or yell. Help! For this film, we heard a combination of 27 screams, cries, or yells.
Wake up!
Onto our Saw franchise rules, which as you know are applicable for each and every Saw film. Our first rule gave us 6 drinks. This rule was you must have a drink whenever Billy the doll appears on the screen.
Jigsaw.
Rule number 4 is where having subtitles can really help catch this rule in action. That rule being drinking every time you hear the word game or the word jigsaw. This rule gave us 9 drinks for game and 10 drinks for jigsaw, which equaled out to 19 total drinks for this rule.
I want to play a game.
Next up, we have not only a common rule if there was a soap opera drinking game, but regular for our Saw franchise rules. That, of course, is you being obliged to take a sip whenever there's a flashback in the movie. We noticed 17 total instances where the story in Saw 6 was going backwards instead of forwards.
If you spot a new trap, 1 sip is yours to claim. For this specific rule, we've seen a total of 8 new traps in this installment of Saw.
The next rule is yet another staple of the Saw series. Drink whenever you see a tape being played. This resulted in 12 drinks for us.
You would think drinking for every Saw scene in a Saw movie would result in a lot of drinks, right? Well, not for this movie anyways. We only managed to spot 3 Saws in Saw 6.
An unwelcome rule, because it not only gives us only more drinks, but makes our heads spin on screen as well, and gives us motion sickness, is taking a swig whenever there's jumpy or flashy editing. This gave us 20 drinks in this chapter of Saw.
Finally, we come to our one and only Saw 6 exclusive movie rule. This rule is that whenever somebody survives a trap, you must take a sip. This generally is not the case for most Saw movies because many people generally die in their traps. But this one, however, there is a grand total of 10 survivors in either the same or different traps.
After counting all of our Saw 6 required rules, we got our final numbers. We counted a grand total of 131 sips, which is the equivalent of drinking slightly under 4.5 standard 12-ounce cans. That number is based off a 30 sip per can scale, which we use in all of our horror movie drinking games. For comparing the rules, these rules had an average of 11.9 drinks per rule. So in terms of drinking to this Saw movie, it kind of felt average compared to the other movies.
Yes, I would say definitely. It got back to the roots, which is new trap, tape, Billy game, screams, flashy editing, and death.
Mm-hmm.
But some traps were worse than others. Starting with Pound of Flesh, where the 2 people had to cut off skin or body parts to weigh down the other person. So that trap was I was fine, but I feel like there was better traps in this movie especially.
Oh yeah, in terms of other traps in this film, there was better ones than that. I thought that one was kind of interesting, putting the big fat guy up against the skinny girl.
Yeah, that's the other thing.
But
the girl was just at a pure disadvantage. She had to lose a body part or just kind of die.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So I kind of like that aspect of the trap, but the trap itself, there wasn't much to it. And that leads us to the oxygen crusher, which William against that janitor clearly had an advantage because the janitor was a smoker.
Yeah, Jigsaw just kind of killed him.
Yeah.
So there was a famous Jigsaw quote that I think we quoted in the last episode, which is, nothing's left up to chance when you can anticipate your opponent or something like that. And so Jigsaw is basically just killing this person.
Yeah. So it's basically the trap where every time you breathe in, it squeezes on your torso more and more. So obviously the janitor, being a smoker, having worse lung capacity, is just clear disadvantage here.
Speaking of people that probably didn't deserve to die, you have the gallows. This trap is where there's two nooses made of barbed wire around people's necks, and William Easton has to choose between one of the two of them. One is a little old lady, has a nice family, and the other guy is just a loser, has no friends, is what Jigsaw basically makes it out to be. So it's like, yeah, you can kill this old lady or this guy.
Yeah.
So basically, he dies for having no friends.
Now, onto the steam maze, where William basically had to press down and get his face blasted with hot steam so that girl could get through without dying, essentially.
Yeah, I don't know why, but this one really reminds me of a Saw 7 trap, and I don't know what it is. Maybe it's because a lot of these ones have multiple people in them, as you can see from the survivor rule. Or maybe it's just the environment, but I really feel like it's a Saw 7 trap. I seem to always forget about this one, and I don't know why.
I guess we'll find out why in the next movie.
So at the very end, you get to William's trial on the acid trap, and I guess that kind of leads into the main twist here. It felt so implied that the mother and the son were William Easton's family that nobody just kind of figured otherwise, and it happened to be the other girl was just the sister.
And yeah, so the way that trap killed him, it seemed like such a horrific way to die.
Yeah.
Basically just getting a bunch of acid needles just into the back.
I agree. That's probably one of the worst ways to go in any Saw movie, excluding maybe the rack or like one of the ones in Saw 3. But this is definitely one of the worst ones.
And then we got the reverse bear trap 2.0, where Hoffman clearly shows us again that he's kind of a badass.
Yeah, he basically escapes from a trap that's pretty much a death sentence, in kind of the same way that Strom did in the previous movie.
Yeah.
But he lives and has a huge scar on his face like he's the Joker now. So side note about Hoffman, it really looks like he needs an EpiPen because it looks like his lips are just so inflamed all the time.
Yeah. It kind of looks like he got stung in the face by a bee several times.
Yeah, or he's allergic to something, having some severe allergic reactions.
So going back on topic for now, let's address the elephant in the room, the shotgun carousel.
Yes, this is one of the most iconic Saw traps, I feel like, in the franchise at this point. I'd say next to kind of the bathroom trap, the rack, the reverse bear trap, all of those are really iconic, and this one's kind of with it on another level.
Yeah.
Just for it to come so late in the franchise just kind of adds to that.
Right. And drinking for that trap was kind of especially hard.
Yes.
There was people constantly screaming, people dying, even people living, which is also another rule in this game.
Yeah, that one kind of screwed us over. Generally, we'd have it capped at 5 for the mercy rule, but that is not happening.
It was kind of cool to see how people would turn against each other when it came down to life or death, though.
Yeah.
And fun fact about this movie, there was actually supposed to be 10 victims originally, but then they cut it down to 6 for the pacing of the film, and it also just matched the film's title with Saw 6.
Yeah, that probably would have been more drinks too, so that's fine. But yeah, I guess the trap was 8 minutes long, which I think was the longest like singular trap in the series.
Yep.
Which, to be added on to that, like if it was 10 people instead, it might be like 14 minutes long, which is a good chunk of that movie, especially for one continuous scene.
Yeah.
And I guess speaking of that scene, the one person that I love the most, his name is Josh, and he just reminds me of Will Ferrell was in a Saw trap that entire time. Just the way he says his words, it's gold. I love him so much.
Oh, well, that's it, isn't it? It's over! You motherfucker!
I generally hark on actors like the guy in Saw 5 or Leigh Whannell's acting performance in Saw 1, but this guy's I love.
So moving away from the traps for a little bit, we'll discuss about the horrible FBI agents, which you can't have a Saw movie without bad cops.
Clearly at this point. The main thing that's a problem is they say that they will give Hoffman full disclosure, and yet they hid the fact of Strom's death from him.
What else have you been keeping from me?
So Hoffman's sister is the only outlier. And that would mean you probably shouldn't give him full disclosure, especially with somebody so close to the family being there. And especially if she's the only outlier, that immediately makes Hoffman a suspect, in my books anyways.
Yeah, you would think.
The big problem indicates that they were already suspicious of Hoffman because they didn't give him full disclosure on the whole Strom thing being dead, yet they let him walk into the building with no backup plan if the guy goes rogue, and then they interrogate him on that exact fact. So this means that it's just, again, horrible police work, horrible tactics. It's like they're trying to interrogate him at the worst times. They don't have like a SWAT team about to arrest him or anything like this.
Right.
It's at the point where probably anybody with half a brain cell would have figured this out.
Also, again, Perez is not as well fleshed out as Carey was.
Not at all.
And I still won't forgive them for basically writing these two characters out with Agent Matthews and Agent Carey.
Yeah, so another example of that. So you can really see the difference with Carey and Matthews because they were not only partners, but they were also lovers. It caused the split between Matthews' relationship with his wife. So you can actually see the connection a little bit more if Perez is the one in the hospital from Saw 4 or Matthews is the one that goes missing. You can kind of see that connection a little bit more. But moving on, I feel like Saw 6 has a much more fleshed out main Jigsaw game in comparison to 5, for example.
Oh yeah. I feel like the storyline was a little bit better in Saw 5, but the traps for Saw 6 were clearly better than 5. And that just proves that people watch Saw for the traps. I would say that 6 as an overall movie is better than Saw 5 and Saw 4.
Yeah, I feel like the whole just storyline with William Easton is just a lot better than the Fatal 5, for example. Even if William Easton is just pulled out of thin air, just a new character made specifically for this movie, I still feel like it was just so much better done than Saw 5 or Saw 4. But yeah, I guess all movies have their stupid moments, but my favorite stupid moment in this movie especially is where John Kramer just looks at the piranha cage and says,
Piranha.
It could be a reference to how he sees all those people as predators as they prey on weaker people, such as people that need health coverage. But I just love that line just because of how stupid it is.
Yeah.
But I feel like on that note, speaking of stupidity, it's time to move on to the Darwin Awards.
And finally, we come to the award ceremony, where we award one not-so-lucky nominee the Darwin Award. This award goes out to the character who made a stupid decision that resulted in them dying, someone else getting killed, or simply resulting in something bad happening that could have easily been avoided. This award can also be given to a character that is just plain dumb. Here are the nominees.
The first nominee today are both Agent Perez and Agent Erickson for having every reason to be suspicious of Detective Hoffman, but only calling him out on it when they say that Agent Strom must be dead, but tells that to Hoffman's face and gets them killed. Not to mention Agent Perez open firing at Sashi.
Second, we have William Easton for not ducking or going to the opposite side of the room and getting impaled by needles, injecting him with hydrochloric acid instead. In short, William is what happens when you do not have a good enough reaction time on Dragon's Lair.
And finally, who could possibly forget our final nominee? Hank, the janitor. Because smoking kills.
And the winner is Agent Erickson and Agent Perez. It was an awfully close toss-up for who could have won the Darwin Award today. The overall avoidable trap from William or the bad decision-making of the FBI agents. But we decided to give it to the FBI this time around just for their terrible police tactics.
And with all that being said, we hope you enjoyed our look into the 6th Saw movie. And if you end up playing the game alongside the movie, or if you have any feedback or suggestions, let us know in the comments below. Also, please tell us what you think is the most iconic Saw trap in the series. The one that defines the series for me is the reverse bear trap. But what is yours, and why?
Make sure to like and subscribe to our channel so you don't miss tomorrow, where we inch closer to the end of the franchise with Saw 3D, Saw the Final Chapter, Saw 7, whatever you want to call it. And with that being said, thanks for tuning in. And this is us saying, cheers to fears.